Welcome to Soundscape and Mindful Meditation, where we explore the transformative power of meditation, sound healing, spirituality, and mindfulness. My name is Amandine, your guide on this journey toward inner balance and harmony. In this podcast, we delve into practices that nourish the soul, elevate the spirit, and cultivate a deeper connection with oneself. Each episode is crafted to bring you moments of tranquility, whether you're seeking relaxation, stress relief, or a pathway to self discovery. Today, I have a truly transformative conversation lined up for you. My guest is Cameron Kirdzik, a visionary founder of Awakenpedia, a global spiritual awakening platform and holistic health community. Cameron's journey from a successful career in private equity to leading a life dedicated to love, consciousness, and spiritual growth is nothing short of inspiring. After experiencing a profound spiritual awakening in the summer of 2020, Cameron channeled over 100,000 words of spiritual insights, which laid the foundation for Awakenpedia. His mission through Awakenpedia is to ignite a global awakening and offer healing resources to combat issues like addiction, mental health crisis, and violence. So join me as I delve into Cameron's powerful story and explore the insightful teaching that are helping countless individuals worldwide on their path to spiritual and holistic well-being. Time to get started. So sit back and open your heart and mind to the wisdom and experience of Cameron.
Well, hi everyone. Hi Cam. Thank you so much for joining us today on Soundscape and Mindful Meditation. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, and lovely to be here and to see you again.
Nice. Yeah, I'm very excited. So for anyone who doesn't know Cam, as I was explaining in the introduction, he is the founder of Awakenpedia, a wonderful platform that is now about a year old. And we're going to talk about this beautiful journey that you've been having with the world of Awakenpedia and helping others through the path of holistic medicine and spirituality and meditation, I believe. But before we talk about that part of your this chapter of your life, I was curious if you could bring us a little bit about what you were doing before and what happened, in your life that you transitioned into this holistic health world.
Yeah. I know it's always funny, right? Trying to put words to what we're doing here, because ultimately it's a wordless endeavor. We're dealing with that which cannot be described. So we try our best, but we always miss the mark at the end of the day. And sure, happy to kind of give you some of that context about the journey, and it has been one indeed. So quite the adventure. But prior to Awakenpedia, I consider myself, or would describe myself, as what appeared to be, a classic westernized materialist that was just kind of like groomed by the system and by education and by my parents and just everyone around me, seemingly, that associated success and happiness with material wealth. And so I was kind of plugged into that type of jet stream of unconsciousness, as I like to say, which, actually led itself to me being quite the successful ego player, as I say, where, I did great at school. I was a good soccer player. I got recruited. I went to Yale, went straight into private equity, making a lot of money, had all the toys, had all the pleasures, was a great hedonist in that way. And the irony that I kept running into was that the more I seemed to achieve and the more successful I was, the more empty I felt inside. And it really was confusing to me because, according to the world, I was doing everything that I should have to have been happy and to have been, on top of the world, just living the dream, as they say. And so that created quite the cognitive dissonance within me. And that was a state of suffering where I, was supposed to be so happy and yet felt so empty and miserable. And that just kind of fed the misery. So through that, I actually kind of, as many do, fell into substance use and just various forms of escapism to try to numb that pain that I was feeling, but I didn't know why I was feeling it. And that worked until it didn't. and in the sense that, the substances, the activities, the escapism, it provided that, false sense of okayness, and that false high, if you will. And so ultimately, it all came crashing down after years and years of banging my head against the wall, to no difference in outcome in terms of that feeling. I had what the world would describe as a mental breakdown, but what we call in our world an ego death or a shift in consciousness. And that period of my life, which was summer of 2020, was the most transformative that I ever probably will experience, because it completely catapulted me out of the material world, and I got to taste the transcendent dimension. So with that, I just did a complete 180. I quit my job in private equity. I became a full-time nomad essentially overnight. I hopped in a Jeep, drove south in the United States, and just said, well, let's see what happens. Let's see where we go from here. Because I knew what I was doing and the way I was doing it and how I was interpreting reality was not true, and it was causing me misery. So I had to surrender and just let go of that control of thinking I knew what to do to experience peace. And through that surrender and becoming a nomad and becoming a student of life with authenticity and earnestness, I started to really come into connectedness with the being that we all share. And the longer I stayed in that state, the more it became kind of solidified within me as a knowingness. And that's what kind of ultimately led to the birthing of Awakenpedia, which we can get into more later perhaps, but that's kind of the precipice that led up to this birthing.
If I understand correctly, I mean, your story is very interesting because I feel a lot of people can relate to it. I know I can. We do our best to please everyone around us, and we do good grades, and we try to find not something that resonate with our heart, but resonate with the future wallet.
Right.
and only to feel like, wait, this is it? Really? I'm going to be at this office and this desk, and I'm going to have to wait every week, Friday night, to finally have 2 days just for me. So I can, I really appreciate your story. It feels very close to home. But in your case, so you had that moment where you could no longer go. And did you find, did you connect with the, meditation in that world before you decided to hop on your Jeep, or did you just decide like, no, I'm just stopping, I'm closing the chapter, I don't know the next chapter what it's going to be like, but I'm just going? Was it like this? And how did you, what was it a connection with someone or with a place? How did you get that encounter that allowed you to realize the unity and that energetic world?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking that. And I do feel that like coming into courage for myself was a gradual process of just chipping away and slowly letting go of the hindrances that were blocking me from living authentically. And what I mean by that is, like, I got sober before I quit and went into my nomadship days and journeying. And I was, meditating quite often before I really unplugged from the matrix. And so I was journaling too, right? Like every day for hours a day. So I was slowly starting to incorporate more wholesome, holistic practices into my life, not even by intentionality, but simply because the suffering was so intense that I needed ways to cope. And I knew that the substance use and these things weren't helping. They were exacerbating the suffering. So I had the two cents, or the higher self intuition to know not to repeat the same mistakes again and to try a different path. And I feel very grateful and blessed that I was guided towards meditation, journaling, removing poisons and toxins that ultimately allowed me to connect with whatever we want to call this essence that unites us all. And that was gradual, right? So like, I think I was coming up on my 1 year anniversary of sobriety when I actually left the Matrix and, kind of went on this voyage. And I see in hindsight, like all of this had to happen in that type of order for me to really embrace this life, because the ego and the density of illusion was so thick that like I needed to slice it away bit by bit, like a machete in a forest, chopping away at all these weeds that we carry in our garden of the mind, and to the point where I had enough knowingness and confidence, true confidence, to step into the unknown with that faith. So it definitely was gradual, and there was a lead up to this. And then from there, that was like the launch pad.
Nice. Oh, that's really interesting. And so can you get us now through the journey of when you started to feel like yourself, you started to feel that connection, and from that point to deciding to start creating Awakenpedia? Can you guide us through that journey of like when you realized it was time for you to help others do what you had done, basically?
Yeah. And I'll preface this all by saying that I really, truly know that none of this is of my will. It's not even of my decision. This entire experience of the creation of Awakenpedia has been a channeled process where I've simply been, the person steering the wheel and the vehicle through which all of this divine genius is being expressed. It has nothing to do with me, and I take no credit for it because I don't even necessarily understand any of it. I simply know that it's true, and that it helps to restore us into balance and peace and love and joy. And I know that from my own direct experience, which is why I'm so passionate about this being the way we help others on their path and healing and recovery and just coming back into love, because I've walked the path and I'm still walking the path, right? But anyway, so all that's to say how Awakenpedia came about. I'm as much a witness to this as anyone else, because I'm simply the expressor, and that's it. With that said, I obviously have a very intimate relationship with this happening because it's coming through me. I just know that it's beyond me in that sense. So when I unplugged from the Matrix and I went into the woods and I was voyaging around the United States for several months into several years, I forget the exact amount of time, but I was just away from the world, unplugged, without any doing in mind. I was simply being. I was basking in being. I just was living humbly, if not like what the world would call like a starving artist, just kind of like couch surfing. And I'm still couch surfing to this day. But, just with a bit more direction now. At that time, I had no idea where I'd be tomorrow. I was in the middle of random forests, but I was so content being there. I was so pleased simply for being. And there was a tremendous...
Sorry, you're reminding me of this friend that was telling me we're a human being, not human doing. Yeah, and so the way you're talking is just reminding me of that. Yeah, you were a human being. You were not a human doing in that moment.
Yes, exactly. That's a great way to kind of summarize what I'm pointing at here, which was I was actually being human, and that was through connectedness to the being itself. And the longer I stayed in that state of being and just marinating in the being, the more I was able to relax and calm down my nervous system so that I was able to step away from survival mode, which is how 99% of our world exists. And I was able to relax into creation mode, which exists in the alpha and theta brainwave states. So I was staying in just a suspension of like alpha theta for many months. And that allowed me to connect with the transcendent dimension and ultimately receive all of these insights, which became the beginnings of Awakenpedia as the micro teachings. And all of this was channeled, right? So all of this was scribed. Nothing was analytically written. I was simply sitting there, and as insights came, I simply scribed them. Would you like to hear the story about how that actually happened, like the catalyzation of that, if you're interested?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, because I do think it's worth sharing. And all right, so I'll try to keep it brief, but I think it is very important to highlight, and you'll see why. But
Yeah, and I think it's important to, hack the way we work when we get in touch with, I like to call the sacred. I feel like
yeah,
it encompasses everything. So when we connect with the sacred, I love that you are willing and wanting to share that, because I feel like a lot of people could use that understanding, step by step of what happens, and that takes away the fear, right? And more general understanding. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And with this said, how everyone ultimately comes into that connectedness and that relationship with the sacred, I do sense is a very personal, unique process, right? Like that path is what is unique to you. But we're all ultimately coming into into union with the same universal essence. So anyway, I was driving back from the beach one random night in Charleston, actually, where I am right now. And it was around midnight or so. And it was a perfectly clear night. There was no clouds in the sky. It was all stars. It was a beautiful night, perfectly clear. And I'm driving along the road and it's empty, no one's around. And I passed this church, and the church is suspended in a cloud. Quite literally, a singular massive cloud is engulfing this church. And I found it to be the most strange thing, because there is no clouds around anywhere else for miles that I could see. There is no clouds in the sky. There was nothing that could explain what I was witnessing. And that's why I knew it was so divine. It was beyond what the senses could make sense of. And so I felt this urging to just pull over. And not only pull over, but to get out and to go dance in this cloud of what I don't know what it was, but I just felt some calling to go frolic in the cloud like a child, just dancing in it. So I did, and I ran into the cloud, and it's just me like a crazy person, like at midnight, dancing in front of a church by myself, just like absorbing this essence. And then I just got back in my car, and I drove back to my hotel. And as I was getting back into the hotel, I felt almost an instantaneous fire. That's the only way I can describe this. A fire of sorts, almost like a Kundalini awakening that was burning up and rising through me, that almost led me to make the decision to go to the hospital, because I was so confused by what was happening. It made no sense. I wasn't sick before. I didn't have anything going on. I just felt this massive firing arising within me. And I ultimately, instead of going to the hospital, said, something's happening here and I just need to trust this. And so I surrendered to the experience. And it was 2 days after that happened that I was suddenly thrown into the writing portion of this journey, where I simply downloaded what became north of 150,000 words in a month. That is what is now on Awakenpedia in terms of the teachings portion. So all of the writings that are on Awakenpedia today have come from that 1 month period of intense channeling, where I simply was scribing all day, every day, nonstop. And I don't remember a word that I wrote. So it's a very strange yet beautiful, and I know divine experience that is here to help serve others. Because the writing, when I read it back and I see it, the whole point of it all is to use concepts to help us transcend conceptualization. So we're using the mind to go beyond the mind. And the point of that is it helps return us to love in our heart space, and to return us to truth, which is to rise out of illusion. Anyway, that was the launching of Awakenpedia in its purest form of creation. And from there, it has since expanded, as you know, into what now is a very comprehensive and growing platform that has various teaching medias and formats, from writings to audios and videos, and a blossoming member community, a blossoming partner network, including yourself and hundreds of others now. So it's just been quite the journey. But anyway, I just wanted to share that in terms of how it really commenced.
I loved it. Thank you so much for sharing. It was beautiful. Like, you gave me goosebumps a little bit.
Yeah, well,
I love to hear the stories. It's always amazing when we share that connection and what happens. And yeah, it's crazy that you had a month worth of messaging to channel after that and that it was, yeah, the way you present it, it really feels like a Kundalini awakening, a fire like this raising up.
yeah,
Well, what an experience.
yeah,
um
yeah.
what So you've shared all the things that you've channeled into the platform, offering an immense value to everyone. And through this past year that Awakenpedia has been open and helping others, have you noticed improvements in the people that have been in the community? What could you share about that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, of course. And this that question is frankly one of the most important fundamental reasons why, like, I sense I'm doing this work, like why I'm here, which is to help catalyze those transformations within others. And it's been such a blessing to witness some of these stories that have already come through about the impact Awakenpedia as a collective unit has had on people's lives. I've heard from many people who have been suicidal, who have been struggling with various labeled mental illnesses, that are getting no support or practical guidance from westernized pills and potions. And it's been a refuge for those who don't know where else or how else to turn, as a way to help transmute this suffering peace. So there's been countless people and stories of emails and people that have reached out to express that appreciation and gratitude for the existence of a platform like Awakenpedia. And I know that it's just the beginning, because we are, as a society and as a species, at the precipice of massive inflection into what I know is a tsunami of demand on its way for services of holistic nature that work with energy dynamics, that are actually addressing root cause illness rather than treating symptoms and putting band-aids on these symptoms. So my sense is that this is just the beginning. What we're doing here is in many ways the future of healthcare, and how we actually treat human beings for the illnesses that we carry and that we embody, like this trapped energy in us. So, yeah, I hope and do expect that there will be plenty more of these success stories to come in the future.
Awesome. Yeah, it really feels like, I don't know if it was the pandemic, or I feel like maybe it started a little before, but the pandemic has been an accelerator in that way, that a lot of people have realized that, okay, this is no longer working. The world is dead and shallow, and I am just a piece of meat, going from one physical thing to one object to the other is just, so yeah, I'm really hoping that as that movement and that energy grows, it's going to be able to help people steer them into a way that just works for them. Like you mentioned earlier, everybody's journey is very different and very personal. So whoever, the way it takes for everyone is going to be slightly different, but you hope that everyone is going to find this outlet or that person, that voice or that message that just helps them get to the truth.
Yeah.
And talking about finding different voices, having everybody having their way to connect. An important aspect, obviously, of what you do is bring on board new members, new practitioners, new. And what would you say? Because it's important to make sure you find the right people to grow your team. So what are the values? What do you look for when you bring a new teacher on board? Obviously, it's not whether they have a lot of followers on Instagram, I imagine.
Yeah.
So could you share a little bit the values that you're looking for when you select new new teachers and new practitioners to help you in your adventure, in your mission?
Yeah. Yeah, another great question. Thank you for asking it, because I do think in many ways my answer to this is one of the biggest and most important differentiators for Awakenpedia versus any other platform that exists today. Whether that's Heal.me, Insight Timer, various other communities that exist, spiritually inclined. And the most simple but true answer to this is that what I am looking for, and why I personally sit down with every potential new partner to bring in as a facilitator, is their own respective level of consciousness, or their level of presence, their level of awareness, which so often is a function of their own personal awakening journey and where they stand in this process. So as opposed to how many followers you have on Instagram or socials, or how many credentials and certifications you carry, or how many different things you can boast as a label to showcase your value, I look for energy. I look for presence. I look for how mature you are, spiritually speaking, so that you can help truly guide others along the path who are walking in your shoes. And that's a subjective assessment, of course, but it is one that you can actually make a discernment on, right? By talking with people. And that's why connection and sitting down is the way that I can make that discernment. Because again, I'm speaking from my own direct experience. I'm looking at how my interpretation of reality, how my values have shifted since my pre-awakening and post-awakening states of being. And it's so profoundly different that I'm also looking to recognize that in others as I talk to them and look to bring them on as new partners. Have they gone through their own journey of direct transformation themselves? And I ask them pointed questions to be able to see what insights they've gained, what realizations they've had. How do they interpret reality and themselves? And if that is in alignment with Awakenpedia and our own vibration as an organization, that to me is a signaling of compatibility and also of competency of care, to be able to actually service those who perhaps are a bit earlier on this journey and to help guide them along.
I like that. I mean, thank you for sharing that, because it's so important indeed, especially in that world. We work with people who are vulnerable, who are looking for guidance. You mentioned it earlier, very rightfully. So I think it is important to understand. I don't want to quote Spider-Man again, but with great power comes great responsibility. And so, yeah, you have to be very mindful of the words you use and how you guide people, and make sure that, it doesn't come from an ego standpoint, but from your soul. And so, thank you so much for having the mindfulness of knowing, I mean, not going from a businessman standpoint, but going from a soul and from a light, trying to find the other light in the other partner. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to comment on your comment, which is, I think you nailed it on the head better than I did, which is to say, I am looking for that distinction, and it is subtle, and the ego's tricky, so it can be very clever in disguise, and it requires alertness on our side to be able to recognize these things. But I'm looking to bring on authentic, real practitioners that are in this for the primary motivation of helping others, of inspiring change, inspiring healing. And not that money's not a part of this, or material rewards, of course, because we're human, right? There's a function and a time and place, and there's a necessity to that as humans. But it's secondary to what's primary, which is that we are in this work because of the healing that we've personally experienced, and we want to extend that to others. And so I'm looking for that when I'm talking to potential practitioners about where their motivations lie. Why are they actually here? What are they doing this for? And if it's for money in and of itself, it's just not a fit, because because that's not how we make decisions. That's not how we serve. That's not how we offer ourselves. That's not how the program is designed. And there will be an inconsistency there that will quite quickly drive that partner out, because they just won't feel like they're getting an ROI on working with us.
Yeah.
There will be, so it is looking for partners who are creating from the seat of the soul rather than the seat of ego.
I like that. Looking ahead, what do you envision? You said that it was just the beginning, and I hope it is, but how do you envision the next chapters? I know that you've just recently done an online retreat, which was amazing. Do you envision more of that? What is your vision of the continuity?
Yes. So ultimately, the short answer to this is that I truly, and this may sound strange, but I truly have no real goal in mind for this, because as soon as you try to attach yourself to some predetermined outcome, you're back in the mind, you're back in time, you're back in future, and you're back in the ego state. So I really am, my only intention is to remain surrendered and just guided by God, divine, spirit, presence, consciousness, by this essence. That's the truest answer to the question. But with that said, I also am feeling very guided here and inspired to actively participate in this co-creation project. So I'm very motivated to help take this as far and wide as possible, because I know that it will truly be able to help transform lives and save lives. Those who are on the brink of suicide or struggling with addiction or some type of mental illness, this is already proven to help those who are vulnerable in that way. And I foresee that it can help so many more if we can expand this light to reach all corners of the globe. And that's why I'm so excited by the potentiality of virtual solutions, and in particular virtual retreats, because let's just be honest, so few people have $3,000 and 3 weeks of time to go pet horses in Bali, right? Like, so few humans have that option to go experience a retreat in that way. It's just not accessible to the majority of the world. So the majority of the world isn't getting access to holistic healing retreats. I want to bring those retreats, maintaining the quality of them, into the modern household. And I want it to be everywhere. And the way that Awakenpedia is growing with the diversity of our partner network and having such a robust partner network, we're going to be able to offer a very high quality and high frequency amount of retreats, hopefully, one or two every month going forward, so that those who are not able to travel or don't have, the means, financially speaking, or physically speaking, right? Because there's a lot of those who are disabled and can't leave their houses. We're going to be able to reach those who perhaps need it most. And by doing this, and if we can execute it well, meaning that we maintain the purity of vibration, I foresee Awakenpedia becoming perhaps one of the most trusted go-to platforms for holistic healing, energy healing in the future.
Crossing fingers here. Yeah.
That's
really cool.
Yep.
I like that you changed. You were like, I don't have a vision, but I have an intention. I was going to be let me rephrase my question. What is your intention? And you answered the question before I would even rephrase it. So I really thought it was interesting. And I really like, your vision, with the mindfulness of keeping the authenticity of the program, because we've seen time and times again, so many people who they have their aha moment, right? And they start their program, and then the ego takes over, and they become these platform where it's like, oh, you want to come? Yeah, this weekend is 10 grand, like you said. But if you're doing it from the heart, you should not bringing to a level where only very rich people can afford it. You should maintain a system where the one who needs it should access it. So yeah, I really enjoyed how you shared this.
Yeah. And just that we'll be able to serve so many more people in terms of like the reach and impact, because in-person retreats can only serve a capacity of, maybe a couple dozen people. I don't know. It's not that many though, right? Like there's physical capacity constraints. But when we're dealing and leveraging technology consciously, it opens us up to reach the world so much faster and serve so many more people because we don't have the same physical constraints. So this Awakenpedia, ultimately, I really hope and see becoming a platform that actually, perhaps for the first time, uses technology consciously so that we can actually use it to help serve our mission, right? Yeah. Conscious portals, these technologies and the screens. And if we can do that, we can reach thousands of people in retreats. And that's where I really hope that I see the vision of Awakenpedia being a community with thousands of partners like yourself as facilitators and tens of thousands of seekers that are here that are naturally being drawn to these energy services.
That's awesome. Now, to the people who are listening and are just, have not started or are just getting started on their journey to finding the truth of who they are and their relation with the sacred, is there a piece of advice that you would give to them? What kind of piece of advice would you give to those people, to the seekers?
It's so funny because I ask this question too when I sit down with partners in their interviews, and I always am like, I know this is a tough question because it's like there's so many pieces of advice, there's so many things you could say, but perhaps the one that would be an immediate assistance to anyone, no matter where they are and at any point, is that whatever it feels is in the way is the way. And what I mean by that is everything that is happening in the present moment is actually here and has the potentiality to serve as an opportunity to help deepen you into presence, to help you become more conscious. And it is a vehicle of liberation. That is what it is in its essence. And its divine purpose is to help you free yourself from yourself. So anything that you're experiencing, right, in this present moment that could be interpreted or perceived as negative or as a hardship, as an adversity, as unpreferable, as unfair, as an injustice, something that isn't right, right? Instead of labeling it and judging it and trying to remove yourself from it, which in other words could be described as resistance, see if you can simply accept it as if you had chosen it. Now, I use those words very particularly because you want to accept it as if you had chosen it. You're not going to choose to necessarily, you get sick. You're not necessarily choosing that, right? But can you view it as if you'd chosen it? Because as soon as you reframe the mind that way, now there's no reason for the mind to resist it because it's as if you had chosen it. And as soon as you embody that type of perspective, the mind stops resisting and you're able to come into acceptance. And through the acceptance comes solution. So, and then through that solution, you're able to reframe the challenge and use it as that vehicle of liberation to help you become more conscious rather than something that's going to deepen you into unconsciousness and deepen your suffering. So, that's just a tidbit of something that I feel like can help anyone no matter where they are, which is like, whatever you're going through, it is here to serve you. And if you can just let yourself be served by it, as opposed to resisting it, it's going to help you on this journey and you'll enjoy it more, right? It's like, how can we actually enjoy the struggle, enjoy the journey, enjoy the challenges? Like, well, you have to be able to just view it in a way where this isn't something that's limiting you, but it's actually servicing your liberation.
And just looking at it, sometimes when we allow ourselves to look without judgment, then we are aware. We're looking at it. We're not judging an ID. We're staring at it. And I feel like when you stare at it, you just, by you being aware of it, it allows you to no longer being in a reactive situation, but more of a, oh, this is what I've been struggling with. I don't know who said that once, but I love it. And it's like, yeah, we have shadows within, and the moment you put light on it, well, what does a shadow do with light? It
Right.
disappears. And I
Right.
feel like it's kind of that. And we're like, oh, well, why did I spend so many months struggling with this? I just needed to stare at it and accept it, not
Yeah.
judge it anymore. That's awesome. I really enjoy your advice.
Yeah.
I like
Thank you.
that.
Thank you. Yep. And that's a good way to describe it too, as you just kind of re-summarized that, which is, yeah, if you can just kind of detach yourself from whatever the experience is and remain as the observing witness, the witnessing presence, and you're just watching it, right? Like we're watching a movie,
Yeah.
and you're not seeing it as yourself, but you're actually you're just watching it
Yeah.
from that state, which you could describe as the seat of the soul, the seat of
Mm.
presence, which is not the ego state, right? The ego state is when you are identified, you are exclusively identified with what's going on. You believe
Yeah.
it is you, and there is no awareness, there is no separation there.
Mm.
But as soon as you're able to create some distancing, now you're actually able to observe it and you're not as reactive, right? And so you can
Mm.
actually respond with intelligence. And
Yeah.
from that state is where all the creativity and solutions are manifested from. That source. And so from the source comes solution. And that's when the challenge actually, you're able to transcend the challenge because now you're able to actually apply wisdom in order to surmount it. And that's when it becomes enjoyable because you're like, it's just an obstacle. What can I do?
Yeah.
Not, and you're not applying your own will, your own mind, but you're just sitting there in the silence, in the stillness. And out of that comes the answer. Out of that comes the solution. So, yeah.
The tranquil force.
Right. Right. Yeah.
What practice do you engage in to maintain that connection? Because we all know that once you've got into the stage of enlightenment, it's not magical. It's not like a switch and then you just stay there. You need to maintain it. So what is your practice to maintain that relationship?
Yeah, another great question, and actually, I think this question leads into what I feel is very much the heart of the value of Awakenpedia that I'm aiming to help bring to the world. And the reason for that is because what my practices are to maintain that connection are going to be very different, likely, from your practices or someone else's, based on
Yeah.
what their own personal unique vibration is and what they resonate with, right? And what modalities serve them, which is
Or
why,
what stage of their life they are in. As a new
right,
parent, that is also very
exactly,
important.
right, like where you are in this human life, like what you're going through, everything is going to shape what resonates with you from a practice perspective in
Yeah.
that current moment, which is why Awakenpedia is about providing education and services and practitioners for all the different potential pathways and practices that you could kind of look at to see, well, is this something that resonates with me right now? Can I adopt it and bring it into my daily life as a practice to help usher me to the next milestone on this journey? And so maybe like it's breath work for a couple months and that really helps you get through a tough time, and then maybe it's yoga after that, and then maybe it's hypnotherapy, and then maybe it's Reiki, maybe it's EFT. And so the point is that there are so many pathways that all lead up to the same universal summit. So that's a really important point because I don't want to highlight a practice and then to suggest that that's what anyone has to do and should do to maintain the enlightened state of consciousness,
Yeah.
because it's just not true.
Very true.
um,
Yes.
but for me personally, now to answer your question, what I personally really resonate with and my journey and at this point in time is meditation, journaling, and talking. Actually, for me, it's why actually I love to just I like to talk. It's almost like a contemplative, um, sermon-esque type of just speaking, spiritual speaking. It's a strange thing. I don't even have words to describe what that practice is, but it's just it's just it's a state of open awareness and stillness, and I'm just kind of speaking to the truth of what is. So it's a very unique practice. But journaling and meditation are two staples for me that I've carried with me for the past 5 years or so as daily activities, just ways to really embrace that divine essence and to remember it, to continuously reinforce the remembrance of the truth. And with that, I also read a lot. I'm always reading. I reread books all the time because I just am constantly reinforcing the truth. And I have a myriad of spiritual texts that I kind of have like as a rotating shuffle that I continue to reread to help me stay in that state of remembrance.
Oh, I'm curious. I'm going to have to seek the list of those books.
Sure.
Is there one or two that you're like, oh, that on top of your head, that you're like, oh, yeah, I should share about these? Like, do you have a title or two that you would recommend?
Yeah, sure. The spiritual bazooka, as I like to describe it, is A Course in Miracles. I don't know if you've heard of it, but that is in many ways the pinnacle of spiritual insight and truth. And it's a very dense, often challenging read for many, but it is absolutely spot on when it comes to what I see as the true nature of reality, what it points to. So that's the number one. Eckhart Tolle has been a massive influence in my life as well. And he has a variety of books. They're all great. He also has a podcast, Essential Teachings, which is fantastic. But start with The Power of Now. It's a classic. I also love Ram Dass. He has a bunch of different books. Anything from him will serve you. So, yeah, those are a few.
Thank you for sharing. I like that. I'm definitely taking notes, and I hope that those will help a lot of people listening. Before we wrap up, do you have like a success story from Awakenpedia that you are particularly moved with, and that you feel like is validating the work that you've been doing?
Yeah, sure. And I'll use it on a no names basis just to protect anonymity,
Yes, of course.
privacy stuff. Yeah, recently from the virtual retreat, I think it's relevant, but and it points to why we'll be continuing to invest and build out this virtual retreat solution and just the platform that's geared towards servicing virtual retreats. But so this is a woman that is not able to travel. She's not able to leave her house for physical reasons. She just doesn't have the ability. She lives alone. She is also very lonely. And she doesn't have access to what we kind of touched on earlier, which was just the ability to attend in-person retreats, in-person services, in-person events. She's very much just ridden to her home and hasn't been able to find any type of authentic value-adding service or solution that allows entry into this multidimensional world of holistic healing, energy healing. And so, and her review, as are many others, are actually online on Trustpilot, so people could check this out if they want. But ultimately, I received a message from her personally as well that just really lit my heart up and made me feel so great about what we're offering to the world here, because everything that I suspected that this could, be a service for and why it matters, is what was delivered and more. She was also somebody that was struggling with suicidal ideation, just like on the verge of self-extinction, didn't know where to turn, what to do, who to go to, how to receive help. Nothing that the West seemed to be offering in a mainstream way had any type of impact. This was someone who was on the verge of just leaving because she felt completely alone and misunderstood and felt like there were no options. And by offering this retreat and meeting her in the right way at the right time, it's provided her with hope, and she's a lifelong member now and supporter of Awakenpedia, and is just so excited for every new offering and retreat that we'll be providing going forward. And I think she serves as just like, a great epitome of the type of person that we really can reach here with what we're doing. Because the practitioners in our network, like yourself, are so incredible. Like the work that you do and that we offer is of such high quality and of such high vibration and so pure and powerful that it really does have the ability to change lives, to help transform people from the inside out. And if it can do this to one, it can do it to everyone, right? So I'm just so excited to be able to continue to serve in this capacity, to continue to extend myself in service on behalf of God and truth as the light that we all share. And I do know that this is just the beginning in terms of how many people we can help. And if we can change one life, it actually has an infinite impact on how many people we reach and change. Because when you consider the impact of one person's life change over the course of eternity, it's of infinite magnitude, because of how their life then is impacted, and how that impacts the people that they interact with going forward, and how that domino effect, and how that extends into the infinite of generations to come, presuming our species continues to exist. I mean, that truly is of infinite impact. And so I just feel so grateful, and it's such a blessing to be able to serve in this capacity, to know that the work we're doing is of true service to humanity without any type of ulterior motive or secondary agenda, to be able to actually serve on behalf of the light is it makes life worth living, and it
Truly.
brings a smile to my face every day.
You remind me of this quote from the Quran: the one who saves one human saves the entire human race. And I just find it's like so true to what you just said. Yes, it does. When we saved even just one person, it has implication on the environment around them. But I think it's even more than that. Like you said, there's something in the energy that gets clicked, and that creates that whirlpool of beautiful energy around. Yeah, thank you for sharing it like this. Something that I want to say is that I've really been enjoying this interview, like your energy. Every time I've spoken with you or I've seen you, share the journaling bits that you share, or when we've engaged, your energy is so beautiful. Like, we can feel your authenticity. It's almost palpable despite the screen. So I really wanted to say that, because I felt it for this past hour. It's been just like refreshing, to have somebody who is anchored in who they are, connected, aligned, and it's just like, thank you so much for what you do and for who you are. Before we wrap up, I will allow you, if there is anything else that you want to share, please feel free to share it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that, by the way. I see you as you see me, and I know that's why we connected, and why you're a part of this platform and network with us. So, I echo back that sentiment to you too.
Thank you.
And yeah, no, in terms of wrapping up here, nothing else really I want to share, but outside of if people resonate with this episode and are curious to learn more about Awakenpedia, about what we're up to, and to become a part of it in any capacity, they can check out awakenpedia.com. We're in process of building out a member portal right now, which will be a more comprehensive, centralized experience for the user, and it's free to join. So they'll be able to easily access all that we offer, from the services to the events to the retreats to the teachings, to just a growing platform of value to service this healing and awakening journey. So I would highly recommend people check that out on awakenpedia.com, and they can just kind of get the lay of the land you know, become a member so that they can stay in the loop and kind of up to date on everything. But
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, everyone, if you enjoyed this, feel free to check it. As you mentioned, it is free. So go and hopefully stay.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining me this morning. It's been really fantastic. And I will see you soon anyway online. And if any of you listening have questions for us, I will put our Instagram accounts so that you can come and engage with us, and all the links that you need to continue your spiritual exploration through Awakenpedia or Soundscape and Mindful Meditation. Thanks again, everyone. And thank you so much, Cam.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey today. And special thank you to Cameron for sharing his profound insights and the inspiring story behind Awakenpedia. Remember, embracing spiritual awakening and conscious living can transform not only your life, but the entire world around us. Cameron's work through Awakenpedia is a testament to the power of inner growth and collective healing. So if you found today's conversation as enlightening as I did, be sure to follow my podcast, Soundscape and Mindful Meditation, to stay up to date on the upcoming episodes and interview that I have for you. And if you're seeking more information about Awakenpedia and the resources that we mentioned in today's episode, check the links in the description right below, and you will have everything you need. You can also visit AmandineLRH.com for moments of peace and healing programs. I'm always there for you. Until next time, keep spreading your light and stay on the path of mindful meditation and spiritual growth. Thank you so much for being part of this mindful community. This is Amandine, signing off.